Alright, hey guys, welcome back to the video, and today we're going to continue the discussion on quests, okay? Before the video does start though, check out the first link down below in the description. I have plenty of new guides for Bannerlord, news, all that. It's all in that playlist down below. It's all up to date, and there's a lot of guides that are actually coming that, are very close to being done. But with that being said, we're going to continue this thread that talks about quests. Last video we did on this, players were asking for quests to be more impactful to the game world, and the devs kind of in a way said that's probably not the best choice because there's a lot of problems with having that being done. If you didn't see the part 1 video, I'm going to link it down below as well. You guys go check it out, and it's also in that playlist, so it's easy to find. Okay, alrighty, so we've gone all over this the first 2.5 pages. Now we're on the third page, and this is the next one we're going to go over. So we're just going to read what the players have to say and then what the devs have to say, and hopefully we learn something new. Let's do it. Alrighty. Alright, so one player says, I think players aren't terribly interested in doing quests for the sake of doing quests. Okay. The dev replies, but that comes with its own drawbacks, harder to target specific characters / locations. So this has to do, so we kind of have some context. I think this has to do with the fact that obviously quests, what do you call it? They're repetitive. They don't amount to much. They solve a little bit in terms of like, for example, the quest that where you give the villagers grain. It will help the village out, but it's not going to solve, the kingdom's hunger problem if they have one. You know what I mean? It's going to have a small impact, not huge though. And this is done because, as the dev stated in the previous video that we got over this, is since there's so many quests out there, and since AI can also do the quests, you don't want to make the quests too impactful, because if you make them too impactful to the whole world, the world is going to change dramatically all the time, because guess what? You're not the only one doing quests. The AI is also doing quests. So if they have too much impact on the world and how it changes, it's going to be very unstable, if that kind of makes sense, right? But all right, then we have another statement saying, even better if you increase in prosperity actually led to a reduction in crime. Alrighty, and Dev responds, what is crime to you? Why would prosperity reduce it instead of security? Okay, so what I think the Dev means to say here is, I'm pretty sure he's gonna take it in a different way. But what I think the Dev is meaning here is, what does he mean by crime? Does he mean the amount of looters that are on the map? Because obviously, an increase to prosperity also increases security of the town or the settlement, right? And better security means there's a less of a chance for rebellions. You know what I mean? So in a way, security is kind of like the crime level. You can kind of look at it that way. It's kind of more simplified version, but yeah. And then he continues, the player. He says, it might seem that your precondition is actually causing the loop, so if I buy the grain from the nearest town, thereby causing it to drop below 50, I'll give it to the headman. It will trigger the quest again. Maybe. He's talking about, let's go back right over here for some context. So the dev explained kind of how that one quest works, the village quest, and how it pops up in terms of like for the player to actually take it. So we'll just go over it again just quickly. So each quest has preconditions, effects, and resolution. Preconditions is what is needed for the quest to pop up. Effects is what happens during the quest while the quest is enabled, or like once you accept the quest. And the resolution is if you complete the quest. Okay. And so the preconditions for the villager needs grain. First, it needs to be done by a notable that's in a village, not a town. The settlement that it's done in has to produce grain. The nearby town market has less than 50 grain. So whatever town they deliver to has less than 50 grain. And the grain price is, what's it called? It's way above the average price. You know what I mean? Pretty much in simple terms. And if all those are stacked up and if all those are true, all these 4 statements are true, the quest will pop up for the player. Now, once the player accepts the quest, what's it called? They will, depending on how long it takes for them to actually do the quest, per day, the bound city, or not the bound city, the bound town that the village is connected to, will lose prosperity and loyalty each day. Kind of small numbers, 0.2 and 0.5. But if you drag out the quest, let's say for the maximum amount of time, you'll lose a couple points in the prosperity and loyalty. That's why you want to complete it kind of quick. And obviously, once it's resolved, you gain notable power. Like the notable that gave you the quest, he gains power. You get relationship with that notable. You get relationship with the other notables, and the town gains prosperity. There it is. So now let's go back to that post so you guys have the context for it. So again, the player said, it might seem that your precondition is actually causing the loop. So if I buy grain from the nearest town, thereby causing it to drop below 50, but I give it to the headman, will it trigger the quest again? So the developer response says, issues can be narratives within a larger socio-economic context. Quests in these cases typically only solve the immediate issue, not the broader context. So to answer your question, it depends. Going the route you described may maintain the broader context or worsen it and thus enable further issues of the same kind to arise. Yes, but here's the thing. Why players wouldn't do this to create this loop is because if you buy the grain, you're buying it at a very high price. So usually when players get this quest, what they do is they go to a place where grain is very low, and then they bring it to this village so they can make kind of a profit in a way, right? So it doesn't make sense to go to that same town that is bound to, where the price is already skyrocketing, because if you do it a couple times, you're just going to lose a bunch of money for no reason, if that kind of makes sense. So I guess it could happen, in my opinion, but I don't think it's kind of like a valid thing to happen. Alrighty, what is he saying? Going on the route you described may maintain... Okay, he already said that. Though it is not guaranteed, as lowered prosperity also reduces consumption with a higher price that you push for further through your purchase. Makes the location more attractive to caravans. Whatever the case, if you want to resolve the broader shortage, you will need to address that through other means than solving the quest that is dealing with a much more focused issue. Okay. And then the player states, even better if resolving the quest actually leads to resolving the issue, like increase in productivity, so the next time the farmers go to market, they'll be selling more grain, which would make it less likely for the nearby town that has less than 50 grain. Well, yeah, but you completing one quest shouldn't like solve the problem altogether and just forever from there, you know what I mean? And like in the case of the town having less than 50 grain, if an army pops by the town of like 1,000 men, they're going to take all the food. And that shortage is going to pop right back up, you know what I mean? It's not something that can just be solved and forever stay solved. You know what I mean? It's something that, it's dynamic. It's a sandbox. So dynamically, stuff will always continuously change, and therefore quests will continually pop up because of those changes. That's how I kind of understand it. But the dev's response is, generally, it is not desired for quests to override the sandbox. Exactly what I'm saying. Because if quests were to override, like, for example, if you gave that grain and then that village became, like, literally immune to ever giving that quest because their hunger problem is forever solved, it does override the sandbox. And therefore, it's not the purpose of the sandbox, if that kind of makes sense. Because the sandbox is a naturally changing, game in a way. Naturally, a quest may ask the player to utilize sandbox mechanics to shift the balance, but that would ultimately be a quite different quest. It doesn't really make sense for a village notable to arrange the resolution for a regional crisis. Exactly. That sounds like a lord/governor. Okay? And more importantly, the sandbox may resolve the issue long before the player does their part. True. Stuff gets naturally changed in the economy as well without the player's interaction. So again, they're kind of, saying the same thing they said before, which is like, you don't want to make the quest too impactful because, again, it kind of messes with the game in a way that, might not be the best. All right, we got more. All right, so a player says, prosperity and crime have always been linked. A better prosperity meant less low-income families, more jobs, higher education levels, and higher taxes, all leading to better security. Security without prosperity means a totalitarian regime that can be argued to lead to the corruption and thus more organized crime. What in the world, dog? Alright. Dev response says, in a game that has security and crime variable, players will usually expect those to interact. We don't have a crime variable, hence my question. Yeah, they don't have something that says crime, but they have something that says security. Though I guess one can consider low security as high crime. In the case, prosperity and crime are already linked. Exactly. Um, yeah, pretty self-explanatory. But I'm guessing the player wants something a little bit more in depth, which I wouldn't mind. I have no objections to it. And then we have another player saying, or same guy saying, will quests like persuade lords to make peace from Warband make their appearance in Bannerlord? Dev responds, I don't think it would reappear in the warband fashion, aka overriding the entire sandbox decision process to force a peace for some period of time. Okay, so pretty much what he's saying here is there's going to be more quests added, hopefully. But well, he didn't say that, but I think there will be. But at the same time, we aren't going to see quests that override the sandbox. You know what I mean? The override kind of like, they have too big of an impact. So some people are going to like that. Some people aren't going to like that. To each his own, I think. And then he asked another question. The player, will there be quests introduced that are more tied to the later stages of the game? I really hope so. I've talked about this. I think there should be late game quests that only you as a ruler can take. That only you as certain only you as a person with that owns 3 towns or a quest that only you as the biggest clan that's not the ruling clan, like specific to specific positions that are very high up. I think those would be very cool. The dev responds, if other priorities have been completed, additional quests may be introduced. Okay, so technically right now they're focused on other things, and they may be introduced. That's a maybe. Hopefully they are, in my opinion, but we'll see. And then we have another player saying, I forgot to add, does security reduce crime, like less bandits, looters? No, I do not believe so. Also, those little stacks running around really bugs me. So the only thing that I know that kind of reduces bandits and looters is taking out the hideouts, if I'm not mistaken. Those reduce the bandits, but other than that, no, I don't think so. And then the dev responds, not currently. It reflects the situation somewhat, though. Security increases when criminals/hideouts are defeated. It is reduced by raids and destroyed villager and caravan parties. It affects caravan target selection, corruption, tax loss, militia generation, and rebellious states, relations with artisans and merchants, loyalty, tariffs, and issues. Issues being quests. Alrighty, so yeah, pretty much, yeah. It doesn't really affect how much of them spawn, but it does affect all the other things that I've just listed out for you. Then the player continues. Of course, yes, that a high prosperity means high security, which means low crime. Low prosperity plus low security equals high crime, where crime is the result of 2 variables but not a variable themselves. Appreciate the answers, alright? And then the dev response says, from what I can tell, the effect of prosperity on security is based on the amount of garrison you have per X prosperity. Ratio 1 out of 5 to 1 out of 20 is equal to or above 0.0 to 3 security. Ratio, oh Jesus Christ, what is this? Okay, he says, aka lots of assets and few guards make for less security and more crime. Makes sense. So less of a garrison you have, the more technically crime you have. The more security you have, the more garrison you have, the better your security is, therefore the better your prosperity is. There you go. And then the player says, which also closes the door for other big impact quests. And then the dev responds, only, what is that? I don't know what that means. That issue quests are generally not meant to overwrite sandbox mechanics. For example, I think that there is an issue quest to take an enemy castle. That has a significant impact, but you are taking the castle through the sandbox mechanics, not because you succeeded the quest. Okay. So what he's saying here is that they don't want quests that reward you with big sandbox changes that overwrite the sandbox mechanics. For example, like if there was a quest right now that said, do this and this and that for that king, and he will give you a castle automatically that's not technically even a part of that kingdom, because that's going to overwrite the sandbox mechanic of you actually sieging that castle, if that kind of makes sense, right? But there is a quest that says take an enemy castle, and that one is okay because you're still using the sandbox mechanics of sieging that castle to actually complete the quest. So, you know, you sieging the castle and using the sandbox mechanics completes the quest, and it's not the other way around where if you complete the quest, then you get the castle without the mechanics. That's what they're pretty much saying. So technically quests can be added that are, you know, a little bit more extensive, but they would have to follow inside the sandbox, you know what I'm saying, and all the mechanics of the sandbox. Okay. Okay, he explains it here a little bit further, okay? So that's not what I'm saying here. It is simply not desired that sandbox simulation, or that the sandbox simulation is significantly limited or overridden by more rigidly linear scripted mechanics such as quests. Currently, only the main storyline quest does so. True. The main storyline quest gives you family members and stuff of that nature. Then he says, having said that, it is certainly true that extending complex systems is more challenging and time intensive than simple ones. I gave an example earlier regarding a quest idea to solve the shortage. Despite this being perfectly viable for the player to address with base game mechanics, purchase X, Y, and deliver to Z, the normal trade / production, etc., that happens during that time that the player takes may very well resolve the shortage. Okay? So one would either need to accept rather awkward situations. Player observes an abundance of resources by the shortage being described, cancel the quest when the conditions are going the wrong way, or artificially maintain the shortage. Okay, interfering with a number of sandbox systems and thus allowing players to harm settlements simply by taking and not taking quests. Okay, so pretty much what he's saying here is certain quests, even though they kind of make sense, would kind of make the game kind of... They wouldn't... I don't know how to explain it. They just wouldn't fit into the game. Because, like, the quest he's inferring to, like solving the shortage of whatever item that, you know, let's say, for example, a town doesn't have, the player might take too long and the problem might get fixed by itself by caravans coming into that said town. And then when the player goes to complete the mission, all of a sudden, they might not get... They might lose a lot of money. They might have to cancel the quest. So while it does make sense, it might not fit the game. Or the sandbox, because obviously the sandbox, like I said, it works on its own as well. Not just based on the player. There's another player saying, anyway, I think some compromise would be good, like certain quests be always available to the player so they can raise relationship with notables or just have something to do as they trot around the map early. Well, the quests always pop up, and plus, can't you drop an emissary, right? That's also a feature that he will consistently raise your relations with that certain person. So we kind of have that in a way, but okay. The dev says, it doesn't seem realistic to me that a new type of quest would be introduced to the base game at this point. Having said that, I personally would like to have the ability for station clan members to target specific characters rather than random gains they provide now. Okay, so what he's looking at, the dev is looking at, is maybe to have the emissary feature. Like, you can actually pick what notable you want him to gain relationship with, instead of just it being random in the town or wherever place you leave him at. Which I agree. I think that would be a good change. Dev continues, says, I am also not entirely sold by the issue, so that the issue quests would suddenly be a lot more fun to people that don't enjoy them now, just because they became more impactful. Indeed, do the people here that didn't know the effects before we discussed them now find the need grain seeds more engaging and entertaining? True. Okay, so it's pretty much saying, like, you know, a lot of the stuff isn't really shown in the game in terms of the effects of completing the quest, but now that he showed the effects, does that make it more entertaining? Or, you know, some might say yes, some might say no. And then he said, and then the dev continues, in the worst case, stronger effects would just make the players that don't enjoy issue quests feel more obligated to engage with them. Yes. So if they did have a huge impact on how the game went, you would have to actually do them. And if you didn't like them, you would feel thrown off by the game, because guess what? Then you would be doing stuff you don't like in a game, which isn't fun to play. He says, whatever the case, the first step to me would be to improve the information is conveyed. How? I still favor the quest log over dialogue, so it will be less ambiguous. Yes, I think more information is always great. What else we got? We have another person saying, would you guys consider trying in more quests that could potentially raise skills and proficiencies? That would be kind of cool. I don't know. I'm not opposed to that. And then another person says, also I agree that quests that award skill XP would be greatly appreciated. I wouldn't mind that. I don't think that's that big of a deal. But let's see what the dev says. The dev says, I personally don't see an issue with such a quest rewarding, assuming they make thematic sense. So I'm happy to forward that some people would enjoy that very much. Having said that, I do not believe that the fundamental issue of imbalanced or unsatisfactory skill experience gains should be fixed through it. Ideally, the foundation is improved to an acceptable degree and other mechanics provide additional options to the player. I agree with that. But at the same time, I think it would be pretty cool to add those type of quests. I don't know. That's just me. But I think that will do it for me. I'm going to do another one of these a little bit later. My son is waking up. He's about to run in here and make a lot of noise. So I'm going to end it here. All right. We got a couple more. We'll probably do another video already. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know what you guys think about this. And part 3 will be out soon. I'll see y'all in the next one.